Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Soul and Screen. In this particular video, I will be doing a review on Tyler Perry's Sista's Season 9, Episode number 15, titled Family Affair. Let's just get into it, shall we? So, this episode is to me what I call a filler episode, meaning it wasn't the best episode. It had its moments where it was interesting, but in all honesty, those moments where it was interesting, we pretty much were shown in the promos for the episode last week. To me, again, this is one of those episodes that they just needed to move the episode along. It wasn't really the best episode, but I don't think it was by far the worst. So definitely something that I would tag a filler episode, just to get the storyline out there and move things along a bit. So with that being said, I'm going to start with what I usually start with, which is the scenes that actually interested me most, which were, again, the Zac and Fatima storyline. So I'll start off with Fatima. Her storyline, her scene, opens up with her in the conference room. And in the particular conference room, she is looking over some contracts. And Hayden walks in, and Hayden comes in, and he's trying to basically demand a response or some type of an explanation to why she got rid of Chaz as a client, because remember, Hayden is all fanboyed out over the basketball players, and he does realize that Fatima is the one that these people want to work with. And Fatima politely reminded him again, I did like that, she reminded him that, I'm the one who brought in these particular clients. They want to work with me. I just, happen to, you happen to be here around me when they kind of came in. So I didn't have to go searching and for another attorney to kind of supervise or oversee what's going on. I decided to let you do it, basically. So she was just letting him know that we in this situation with these clients because of me. Fatima definitely seems to have a really good relationship with multiple attorneys in this particular law firm. So I feel like she was just reminding Hayden that, you wasn't really doing me no favor in and of itself. It's kind of like my, one hand washing the other. It just happened to work out in my benefit. So now I don't have to go figure out what other attorney can I get to kind of help oversee, since you happen to be there, you offered, and I know you want to do a good job because you want to really kind of probably, if you can, poach some of these clients, you'll do a good job. So I like that Fatima put Hayden in his place. But I also like that Courtney Glade wrote this episode. And I also like the fact that he used a little bit of Crystal's actual and personal life, as he did in the Zatima series with the stalker issue. He used, her real life situation with the women professional athletes being her clients and stuff like that. So for those who don't know, Crystal is a part owner of a professional women's soccer team in Washington, D.C. So I like that he took that aspect of the women's professional being in the professional athletes and brought them into like Fatima's career spot and interest. To help bring in different type of client, and that's like a niche market that she mentioned that is most likely untapped and probably won't have as much liability or cause much issue for them, because the NBA players tend to have they just tend to have a reputation to not do what they're supposed to do and upholding their morality clauses and things like that. So they tend to get in trouble, which ends up being more work for the attorneys and things like that. And so she's not saying that, she doesn't want to take on these clients. I think she's more so just saying like, we probably should spend more time focusing on the women because right now they're still growing. And so they're fighting for equal pay and all that kind of stuff. And so they will be a market that if they get in early and they start representing them sooner, that it's going to benefit them to a greater degree. And the women may not have as many issues when it comes to getting in trouble and upholding their morality clauses and things like that. So I thought that was very good for them to bring that into the storyline for Fatima. To fast forward a little bit into the episode with Fatima, after she lets Hayden have it, she goes home, looks like maybe for like a lunch or something, and Zac is like spinning around in the kitchen, like waiting for her, just like he lit up when she walked in, and he's just like, hey, there go my baby. And she walks in and she's like, hey babe, and he like runs over and picks her up and spins her around. And I just thought that was so cute. I am happy that they kind of are pushing through their, the issue at the argument that they had the night before and everything. And so Zac definitely was loving on Fatima. Like I said, he picked her up and spun her around, and she was just like, oh my goodness, like you in a good mood. And he pulled her chair out, of course, and then immediately like give me them feet, and took off her shoes and started massaging her feet. And started to do what we know that they tend to do, which is communicate. So as he's taking off her shoes, and he is basically catching her up on what happened, since he's left her. He went over to the gym and started working out, and he ran into Mr. Keys. And so he was kind of letting Fatima know that, he ended up getting some money, like $100,000, and he tried to figure out where it came from. I'm wondering if that's some of the money that came from Gary, since Gary is supposedly trying to redeem himself and make apology rounds like he did with Andy. And then, so I'm wondering if he let some of, if not all, because we never really knew exactly how much money Zac invested into Gary's firm. But I'm wondering if the money is coming from Gary and he's like trying to, get back in good graces with everybody before he apparently leaves town and things like that. With that being said, he tells Fatima, we got some money. So he shows her, and she's just like, well, where did it come from? And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, I don't know, babe. Like, you definitely want to look into it because we want to make sure it's not a mistake. And he's like, no, it's not a mistake. I called and they said that it's definitely meant for my account. And so she goes, okay, but do you think it's from like maybe one of the investments? And he's like, I honestly don't know. And so she's like, all right, well, keep me posted, basically. And then he goes, all right, but here's the other thing. So he tells her about Mr. Keys, which in the last episode, Zac finds out that Mr. Keys happens to be an old friend or an old best friend of Zac's father. And so Fatima is like, well, wait a minute, like how he know your father, because you don't even know who your dad is. And Zac explains like, apparently I favor him or something like that. And, so he's explaining why. And so she's looking at him like side eye, and he's like, what? And she's like, I don't know, Zac, I'm just saying, like, you a little too trusting and stuff like that. And he goes, okay, so why don't we do this, since you don't seem to be like, believe in the story and everything, why don't we just like meet up with him for lunch and talk to him about it. And, you can, ask some questions, because basically, again, Fatima is, of course, practicing law, and she come from a family that kind of deal in some criminal shadiness, and then her dad that she grew up with was a judge. So her interrogation skills is she knows how to do them subtly and things like that. So she will be able to kind of help probably get to the bottom of this a little bit more. So Zac is like, let's just do dinner with him, and then that way you can fill him out. And she's like, dinner, and he's like, yeah, he's like, that way you can see what's going on. I trust your judgment. And she's like, all right, if that's what you want to do. And he's like, yeah, and he was like, I love how you always like got my back, and you always standing 10 toes down with me and stuff. And she's like, yeah, I got you. And he was like, all right, so let's do that. And so then he like starts rubbing on her legs and stuff. And she was like, all right, don't be starting nothing. Like, basically don't be starting nothing you can't finish. Because, let's keep it real. Most likely they ain't had sex since the baby, the whole situation with the baby. And with that being said, Fatima pregnant and all that kind of stuff. Plus they just made up. So they both probably like ready. So he rubbing her leg and she's like, all right now. And, she's like, you bet don't start nothing. And he's like, yeah, I better stop. And then she says something like cute to him, like, you better not. Like, and, he leans over and kisses her and, they, have a little cute kiss moment, and then it, moves on. So you fast forward a little bit more into the day. It looks like Fatima gets back to the office, and Andy's mom is sitting there, and I'll get to how she got to, to the lobby a little later. But Andy's mom is sitting in the lobby of the law firm, and she sees Fatima walk in, and Fatima walking in all cheesy and stuff. Looked like, her and Zac got a little moment in, a little quickie possibly. And so she coming back in, and she cheesing and looking at her phone and stuff. And Andy's mom looks at her and goes, hey, aren't you Fatima? And Fatima was like, yes, I am. How can I help you? And so she goes, oh, you look just like the I've seen you in some pictures with my daughter. I'm Andy's mom. And Fatima's like, oh, cool. Like, really happy. Like, who don't want to meet that girl's mom, And so she's like, hey, nice to, it's so nice to meet you. It's good talking to you and all that kind of stuff. She's like, do you want me to go get Andy for you? And she's like, well, no, I already met with Andy. I'm actually waiting for a car service. And she was like, okay, well, if there's anything I can do, let me know. And so she, Andy's mom immediately starts throwing some shade, which, she did kind of get some information from her daughter. Again, I'll get back into that later. But she's basically telling Fatima, well, from what I understand, you don't seem to be able to have time to help nobody, especially my daughter. And so Fatima is looking like, what you talking about, So she was like, she told me, Andy told me that you've been so busy helping these other people that you haven't really been able to help her. And so she's walking around here all stressed out. And so, Fatima's like, looking like really? Like, okay. And so she goes, can I give you a piece of advice? And so Fatima's like, okay, sure. Now, in this whole point, it's, pretty decent conversation. For the most part, she shouldn't have said anything to Fatima, but she still hadn't really completely disrespected her yet. But, they were standing at a pretty decent, space. Like, she wasn't all in Fatima's personal space this whole conversation until this part where she goes, can I offer you some advice? And Fatima's like, sure. She steps all the way into Fatima's face, and then she's like, you basically need to get your act together before my daughter fire you. And Fatima is like, what? And she's like, yeah, and so Fatima is like, well, thank you basically for your advice. And so she, walks off, tries to walk off, and then she stops her. And she was like, oh, another thing. And so Fatima's like, yeah, she goes, so what's going on with my daughter and this Dr. Vaughn person? And so she's like, what about him? He helped Karen, and so she was like, oh, okay. So she basically was trying to see what else is, Fatima could tell her about Dr. Vaughn, but I don't know why she needed Fatima to tell her anything about Andy. You walked in on him kissing. Come on, like, what else is it to say? Like, you know your daughter. If you was parenting, you know your daughter. So, anyway, with that being said, Fatima, goes to the conference room, and she ends up calling Zac. And she calls Zac because, she's kind of like irritated with, the conversation with Andy's mom, because, again, Andy's mom came, to her and was basically like, you used to be really good at helping my daughter out, but now you're not. And so she called to Zac and was like, let me tell you about, like, what just happened. Like, it was crazy. And so she was like, Angie just basically told her mom that, basically I ain't no help to her no more, and I haven't, really been useful to her. And so Zac was like, what? And she was like, yeah. And he was like, you gonna say something to Andy about it? She was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna nip this in the bud. She goes like, I don't really know what's going on with Andy, but like, real talk, like, as much as we've done for Andy, like, she's like, real talk, babe, like, you just almost got shot, in over, while we were helping Andy. And now she over here talking stuff to her mom, like, and making it seem like, I'm not there to help her out, and like making this whole, issue, making things an issue that's not really an issue. Again, I'm not going to get into this argument again. She had one off day where she didn't pull 3 of the emails that Andy needed, and apparently some of the witness statements she didn't get to collect all of them. Again, they can only be collected if the witnesses are available to give their statements, or if they had already sent them over. So again, I don't really feel like the attitude is warranted with Andy, but needless to say, she's like, but with everything that we've done to help Andy, this attitude that she got, I'm over it. I don't really know what it's about. And so she tells Zac, like, in all honesty, like, she really been tripping, hasn't really been the same since that whole situation. And so Zac was like, oh, crap. And he's like, and she's like, what? And he was like, so I got something to tell you. And she was like, about Andy? And he was like, yeah. And she was like, okay, what? And he was like, matter of fact, I'll just wait till you get here. And she's like, Zac, just tell me. So he goes, well, if I tell you, Fatima, you got to promise not to get mad. Well, let me put a pin here. Whenever you tell somebody, I'm going to tell you something, but you got to promise to get mad. Ain't nobody about to do that, because you probably about to tell me something that's about to completely piss me off, right? You know what I'm saying? But thank you for the warning, for the cushion to soften the blow for the news that you about to deliver. But anyway, moving on. He goes, I saw Andy naked. And of course, Fatima is like, what the F you say, Zac? Like, why would you, what you talking about? And so he goes, let me explain, calm down. Like, it was the night of the shooting and everything like that. I went to go get Andy. I took her back to her place. I sat with her for a minute. She went to go get in the shower. My phone was, charging in her room, and I went to go get it, and she didn't hear me, and I walked in and I saw her. He was like, basically, that was it. It was real innocent. It wasn't nothing, and no big deal. And so she was like, Zac, then why wouldn't you tell me? And he was like, in all honesty, it just, everything started happening after that, like the stuff with the baby, like, and then, just everything spilled, just basically just got put on the back burner because of what was going on with the baby and him and dealing with his grief and all that. And he goes, and he goes, but nothing happened. And she goes, nothing else happened. He goes, no, I don't want her like that. Like, it was just something. It was an accident, and we just forgot to tell you. And so Fatima goes, no, you guys didn't forget to tell me. You made a decision to hide this from me. And so he's like, Fatima, come on, like, please don't make this no issue. Like, it just was what it was, So she was like, you know what, Zac? She was like, we in a good spot. Like, we just got good again, basically. Please don't, blow this up. And so she goes, you know what? Okay. I tell you what, I don't appreciate the fact that you guys kept this a secret from me, but, me and you'll talk about this later. And he was like, but we good? And she was like, yeah, me and you good, but I'm about to talk to Andy about this right now. So she gets up and she goes to look for Andy. And, so she fast forwards into the scene. We fast forward into the evening a little bit more. She finds out that Andy most likely, she probably looked at her calendar or whatever and found out that Andy is on her way to meet the girls. So she goes to the restaurant and she walks up to the table. And, they all are sitting down. The sisters are sitting down, and she's like, hey, guys. And they like, hey, Fatima. Danny's like, oh, I didn't know you was, coming to this. And she was like, and Karen was like, yeah, me neither. But you just in time. I was just getting ready to tell the girls some stuff. And so Fatima, apologizes to Karen. She goes, Karen, I'm so sorry. She was like, I hate to interrupt, but, I need to talk to Andy. And so Danny already like, pissed off with Andy anyway. So she was like, girl, ain't no sense of taking no business to the side. She gonna tell us anyway, so go ahead and just tell us all. And so Fatima, she was like, no, this is something that I'm gonna have to talk to her alone with. And so she looks at Andy, and so Andy's like, well, Fatima, can it wait till later? Like, we in the middle of something? And she goes, no, it can't wait. I'll be at the bar. And she walks off. Now, what Andy does know is not to play with Fatima. Like, she because this ain't work right now. So, Fatima has been very clear about distinguishing work with her versus friendship. So Andy's the one who always has the issue at work. Understanding, we at work, so let's talk about work. And when we outside of work, we could talk about personal stuff. Fatima does not blur the line. When she walked into Karen's house that one time and Andy was like, I'm your boss, she reminded her, yeah, between 9 to 5, we not at work. And so this was one of those moments where Andy knew that Fatima, ain't playing in the tone in her voice, because Fatima was very much serious. So she went over to the bar and was waiting for Andy, and it stops there in regards to the Zac and Fatima stuff. So I'll move on to the next conversation that was kind of, I don't know, these are all kind of the same interest level to me. Andy's situation with her mom. Her mom walks in and basically says everything that I said earlier in the previews or in my conversation or video about Andy not being professional at work and stuff like that. So, she checked Andy, like, Andrea Barnes, like, what are you doing? And she government named her. She called her full first, middle, and last name, and was like, what are you doing kissing a man in the middle of your conference room, in the middle of a company that you supposedly trying to make partner in or something like that. And so Andy's like, what are you doing here, Mom? And so basically, so she's like, I came to check on you. And so, Dr. Vaughn is in there feeling awkward. So he's like, I'm going to go. And so she's like, no, don't leave. Like, who are you? And she starts, kind of interrogating him a little bit. And, she's, just trying to find out who he is. She's like, because the last time I heard, I'm walking in on y'all kissing, but the last time I heard, you was with some politician. And, so she started basically reading her dating profile, so to speak, like the last few people that she'd been dating with. So she was like, I heard you was with a politician, and then you was with the dude who, the hedge fund dude who, was kind of in trouble with all the people and stuff. So she basically was letting Andy know that I know about all these dudes that you've been talking to. But what Mama didn't know is that she had just had another encounter with Robin not too long ago either. So once again, Andrea Barnes, you is doing too much at the workplace. So anyway, they go ahead and dismiss Dr. Vaughn. She kind of Andy introduces her mom to him as the doctor who helped save Karen. And then basically he leaves. Her and Andy continue to talk, and she's just like, what are you doing here? And it does not sound like her and her mom have a really good relationship, because the way that she was talking to her, that doesn't sound like a good close relationship. And she even tells her mom, like, what are you doing here? And basically, like, we really only talk to each other once every couple of months or something like that. So that kind of explains some of her tone at the same time, because you can tell that they don't have a really close relationship to the point where she affords her mom certain levels of respect. She didn't get completely out of line, but the way that she was talking to her mama, listen to me, I am in my 40s and I still don't talk to my mama like that. Like, listen, Tiffany's mom will completely ring her, who you talking to? Like, she'll pull the card in a minute. So with all due respect, miss, I'm a grown woman, my mama wouldn't have had it. But anyway, Andy's mom did kind of pull her in line again a little bit to a point, but they end up having a conversation, and it was, again, just to move the storyline along, just kind of letting her know that she basically knows what's going on in Andy's life, regardless if Andy's telling her or not. Apparently, people that her mom knows is getting information back to her. So with that being said, she goes, but anyway, you can take me to your aunt's house. And so Andy's like, Mom, I gotta go. It's an emergency. I gotta go. And so how about I have a car come and take you? Now, with that being said, once again, a car service that for the law office, if I'm not mistaken, which means again you using kind of stuff for personal stuff because you drove yourself to you off work, you using, like Andy just doing stuff that's not professional. Why you can't take your mama to your aunt's and then call her a Uber, or if you're gonna call her a car service, you call her a car service and then you pay for it. You sending using the company's car service to take your mom somewhere is a misuse of company funds. So as an attorney, I feel like you should know that, and you should be kind of, steering clear with that kind of stuff too. So again, another issue that I have with Miss Andrea Barnes Esquire crossing the lines and doing illegal activities under the guise just because she's an attorney. But anyway, so with that being said, she told her mom she'll get her a car service, and then she goes to meet the girls. Next conversation or scene that deserves some kind of discussion is the Karen and Aaron stuff. So once again, this is all forced to me. It was not believable seeing them laying on the couch. They looked really uncomfortable to me, as opposed to when you see like Zac and Fatima. And I'm not saying like it's one thing about the chemistry that Crystal and DeVal have with each other as actors within the characters that they are portraying as a couple in Zac and Fatima. That's one thing. But their mannerisms and things like that are just way more believable, which, again, coincides to them being in love, which is one of the reasons I don't understand why some of the Karen fans at certain points were trying to say that Zac does not really want Karen. Like all Zac's actions, Fatima, all of Zac's actions towards Fatima proves and shows that he's in love with her. He's just still learning how to manage his emotions and the actions that follow with those emotions. With that being said, Karen, the way that her and Aaron were just laid on the couch kind of talking, he was like holding her, it just seemed so forced. And this is why I say that they made this go too fast, because it really could have morphed into a true, authentic kind of relationship if they wouldn't be pushing this so quickly. And I do guess maybe they are pushing it because the Karen character may be leaving, actually. You know what I'm saying? And so maybe they're just trying to finalize and seal up her storyline in with a nice pretty bow before she leaves. But sometimes you just gotta let people take the hit. Like, that's what drama shows are. Like, I would have rather have had her leave kind of with a level or a certain amount of growth than them trying to push and force feed this, because it wasn't realistic. When I saw them, it didn't come across as a couple that was in love, that's actually making plans to go somewhere. It looked like a forced couple that's making plans to go somewhere. We did find out in the dialogue that Karen is not just wanting to move out of Atlanta, the city. She's actually wanting to move out of the state, it sounds like, because I think she mentioned Houston or going somewhere. So wherever they're talking about, it does sound like that she does actually want to possibly leave the state more so than just the city of Atlanta. So anyway, that's it. Like, I don't really have much to say about the whole Karen thing. I knew Miss Lisa probably wouldn't have an issue with it. I really thought she probably would bring up the Aaron, thing again, though. But I feel like that probably would have been the only issue that she had. Like I said, just meaning, you sure you want to do this with Aaron? Like, that more of that kind of a discussion versus her moving and leaving, because, again, Miss Lisa, I don't think she necessarily would have a problem with that. It's just the way that she's doing. So y'all moving away together to become a family, to become one, when she knows that her daughter really is not completely over Zac, is not really in love with Aaron, and again has already kind of talked to her about, be careful about what the relationship and what you're doing with Aaron, because now you have a daughter with this man and you don't want to mix kind of get into an issue where you mess up that relationship because you're using him. I would have loved to have seen that, because that's more authentic and to me. And so anyway, so that was it with that. That's pretty much it with, like I said, I don't really even care about that storyline. Next storyline that I'll bring up is Danny and Tony. I'm glad that, she, pulled his card. Like, first of all, you've been staying here since you got off, and you gotta, since you, quit your job. You've been here at my apartment, my studio apartment, dirtying up the place and everything, and you got this house over there that you decided to put on the market without finding out if I even am okay with you moving into this place or not. But then you want to try to tell me that your kids is coming and you think that we should, all four of us, stay in this little bitty studio apartment. When I tell you, I think that was the stupidest thing probably that I've ever heard of, and even in the series. I mean, not in the series, in the episode. That was the stupidest. Are you kidding? Like, Tony, you was a VP at an airline, and you don't know simple, logistics and math. Y'all is not about to, how are you guys supposed to all four fit in that space? Two of y'all barely fit in that space. And I just don't like what they're doing with Tony. They making him a ding dong all of a sudden. Now he just don't know nothing. And now it seems like he getting into gambling. And I don't like where they doing that. I actually probably was one of the people that was hoping Tony and Danny could work out, because he seems like a pretty decent dude. He just needs, she just got to teach him how to be with her, which I think that happens in relationships. Men tend to try to treat you how either they want to treat you, or based off of past relationships and stuff, and that doesn't work. Every relationship requires some training on both parts. And what I mean is, I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's just, you don't know me and I don't know you. But the only way you're going to get to know me is if I teach you how to love me, how to treat me, how to, how to get me, basically. How do you get my heart? The things that I like, the things that I don't like. Those are things, and vice versa. So those are things that happens in relationships. So she's been in a process, to me, of teaching Tony, I don't need you to micromanage my life. I don't need you to make decisions for me. I don't need you to do those are things that that to me are normal relationship things that you have to teach one another about each other. He may have been able to do that with past relationships. So I don't necessarily think that it was right for him to do those things, but I also don't think that was reason for them to break up. It was just a growing pain where they need to learn how to fix and navigate through that. So anyway, that is where I'm going to end this. Let me know what you think. I think in regards to the Zac and Fatima makeup, of course, the whole him picking her up and talking to her at the house situation, telling her about Andy and why, tell me what you thought about that. The, scenes between Andy and her mom, Andy and the Fatima scene, Andy's mom and the Fatima scene, seeing how it came out. Just give me your thoughts episode. Definitely a filler episode for me. Like I said, wasn't anything too interesting going on. It was just to move on through the time, to get us to the next episode. So anyway, I definitely hope things get better as we progress and get a little bit closer to the season finale, because it's looking rough out here in these streets. Anyway, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and let's get into the conversation. And I look forward to reading you guys' comments. Bye.